On this Sunday night, relief following a retrieval success. The second U.S. airman shot down in Iran is rescued in a risky operation. But the U.S. now appears stuck.
He is trapped in an escalation trap.
As President Trump posts a new profanity-laced threat to Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. In his first Easter Mass,
Chi ha in mano armi le deponga.
Pope Leo's plea to those who unleash wars. Artemis II's critical test ahead of Monday's lunar flyby. And Canadian children's questions to astronaut Jeremy Hansen.
I wonder, do you still see stars in outer space?
And feeding the soul.
To get here, it just seemed like I climbed a mountain.
An Indigenous cafe in Edmonton that's serving up more than food.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The U.S. administration is likely breathing a big sigh of relief after recovering a missing airman stranded in Iran after his fighter jet was shot down. On social media, U.S. President Donald Trump celebrated the daring rescue, which happened behind enemy lines. But he quickly pivoted to a profanity-laced threat if Iran doesn't quickly reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We'll have more on that in a moment. Iran's parliamentary speaker responded on social media, slamming Trump and saying he won't accomplish anything through war crimes. But Trump also posted another ominous warning on Truth Social, alluding to an event planned for Tuesday evening. Reggie Cicchini has more on the airman's rescue and a warning you will also hear the U.S. president's unfiltered threats.
Behind enemy lines, determination outweighed risk as a missing U.S. airman whose plane was downed in Iran on Friday was safely retrieved with the assistance from the Israeli military in what the American president called one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history.
It's an electronic nightmare in the sense that he's got capabilities to communicate with the air crews that are looking for them. But at the same time, all it takes is for one person to spot him.
Axios reports the U.S. initially thought pings being picked up were a false signal, given Iranians were searching for him. The IRGC aimed to prevent this rescue while portraying the event as a victory, claiming it destroyed American military hardware. Experts refute that, saying it's standard operation for the U.S. to destroy its equipment if left behind.
Wars are not won by rescue operations.
For 5 weeks, Iran has been under constant bombardment and defiant, even in a weakened state, carrying out strikes on its neighbors, most of which house American military and commercial assets.
Those military operations are going to be ongoing, so we may find disappointment right around the corner.
We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective.
Facing domestic fallout over soaring oil prices, Trump lashed out at Iran for closing the Strait of Hormuz. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one, Trump told Iran in a social media post. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell.
Iran's reaction would be one of reciprocating any such attack.
He is trapped in an escalation trap. His only option in order to get closer to his objectives is to go deeper into this crisis.
In an interview with Fox News, the president says the U.S. and Iran are negotiating, hinting that amnesty was offered to those taking part while posting to Truth Social Tuesday at 8 p.m., appearing to extend that Monday deadline, while telling ABC News, Colleen, that if a deal happens, it happens. If not, quote, we're blowing up the whole country.
Reggie Cicchini in Washington. Thanks, Reg. As the U.S. threatens more attacks on Iran, Israel launched more airstrikes on Lebanon today. Strikes, it says, were meant to target the armed group Hezbollah. At least 14 people have been killed in the bombardments, with dozens more injured. In Beirut, the attacks hit some of the city's suburbs and nearly struck the country's largest public hospital. Israel's military says it was targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in those areas, but did not provide evidence to back those claims. In Gaza, Israeli strikes also killed 4 people today, despite the ongoing ceasefire with Hamas. Israel claims it killed members of a militant cell that posed an imminent danger to its troops in the area. It marks the latest violence hindering efforts to enter the next phase of the ceasefire. Since the truce began in October, Gaza's health ministry says around 700 people have died from Israeli fire. Israel says 4 of its troops have been killed. As Christians around the world marked Easter Sunday, in his first Easter Mass as head of the Catholic Church, Pope Leo urged all world leaders to reduce violence and choose peace. As Vincent McAviney reports, the pontiff's message comes as many across the Middle East endured yet another day of strikes.
Sirens instead of church bells rang out over Jerusalem this morning as Iranian missiles and drones were intercepted overhead. In the heart of the old city's Christian quarter, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built on the site of Jesus' crucifixion, would normally be full over Easter with thousands of congregants and pilgrims. But only a few priests were present, with Israeli police having said at the start of the war with Iran that all holy sites, including those also sacred to Muslims and Jews, must be closed to worshippers. In the Vatican, thousands gathered in St. Peter's Square for Pope Leo XIV's inaugural Easter address as pontiff. The first US-born pope has been a vocal critic of the Iran war, even taking the unusual step of directly naming US President Trump on Tuesday, calling for him to find an off-ramp. Today, he didn't name names, but his message's intended audience was clear. Let those who have weapons lay them down. Let those who have the power to unleash wars choose peace. Not a peace imposed by force, but through dialogue, not with the desire to dominate others, but to encounter them. Last week on Palm Sunday, the Pope had warned that God ignores the prayers of those with hands full of blood. Today, his message went wider, warning the world's 1.4 billion Catholics not to become indifferent to suffering. We are growing accustomed to violence, resigning ourselves to it, and becoming indifferent. Indifferent to the deaths of thousands of people, indifferent to the repercussions of hatred and division that conflict sow. In Lebanon, visited by Leo on his first trip as Pope last year, there was more destruction. Despite the hardship, Catholics here are still drawing strength from their faith. We are going through one of the hardest periods we have ever faced. That's why we believe in Jesus. We will celebrate no matter the circumstances, despite how difficult things are. Pope Leo has announced a special prayer vigil next Saturday for the people of this region, as they face a time of deep uncertainty. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Artemis II is now closer to the moon than to Earth, with its crew preparing for an historic lunar flyby on Monday. Now, if all goes according to plan, the astronauts will break the record for the farthest humans have traveled from Earth at a distance of more than 400,000 kilometers. Heidi Petracek reports on day 5 of the mission.
Here's the maple syrup that we opened up and had at lunchtime today. So we had a little bit of Canada on board today.
From the far reaches of space, Artemis II mission specialist Jeremy Hansen spent part of the overnight hours Sunday answering questions from curious young Canadians.
I wonder, do you still see stars in outer space?
I've definitely seen stars in outer space, and I was saying I haven't seen as many as I thought I would.
Integrity's astronauts have been able to admire the moon from an entirely different perspective, capturing stunning new images and marveling at the sight.
And the moon we are looking at is not the moon you see from Earth whatsoever. It's just everything from the training, but in 3 dimension and absolutely unbelievable. This is incredible.
Currently in the Orion spacecraft, you can see crew members starting to put on their ox suits.
The crew spent much of day 5 testing their survival system suits in advance of splashdown in the Pacific Ocean April 10th. The suits also life-saving if the cabin suddenly loses pressure. The crew's biggest moment comes when Orion begins its flyby of the moon Monday afternoon, a trip that will take the astronauts to the far side of the lunar surface.
This particular flyby is going to be 4,000 miles out,
providing a view their predecessors didn't have more than 50 years ago.
They're going to actually see the eclipse of the sun, the moon actually eclipsing the sun.
And also they're going to be able to see the moon as a full lunar disk from that perspective. One of our astronauts will be using a Nikon D5 camera.
During the flyby, they'll take photos and use visual observation skills, focusing on a list of lunar locations and features pinpointed by scientists.
We're looking for an understanding of how the surface changes, especially with relation to illumination. And we're going to be able to see that from many angles.
We wanted to kick off our Easter Sunday by honoring our crewmate
Jeremy Hansen.
Sunday, Hansen was presented with a special gold pin marking his first space expedition on a journey that intends to make history, going further than anyone has gone before. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
There's also an update on the Artemis II's malfunctioning toilet. It's been fixed again.
And Integrity Houston, breaking news. We have results on the discussions down here for the tank venting, and at this time, you are go for all types of uses of the toilet.
And the crew rejoices. Thank you.
Toilet troubles have been a recurring issue for the crew. This time a vent was clogged with ice. NASA fixed the issue by positioning the spacecraft so the toilet's vent could be heated by the sun for a few hours to melt the ice. And the Hungarian election that has Europe and Ukraine watching closely. Coming up, the choice between a pro-Putin Viktor Orban and a conservative nationalist. Dozens of people are missing after a boat carrying migrants capsized off the Italian coast. Survivors were seen clinging to the boat as two merchant vessels helped to rescue 32 people, but another 71 are still missing. The boat was attempting to cross to Europe from Libya. The International Organization for Migration estimates more than 600 people have died this year trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea. The leaders of Hungary and Serbia are claiming to have foiled a sabotage attempt on a pipeline that brings Russian gas to the region.
Szabotázs akciót készítettek elő.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban says he was informed by Serbia's president, a close ally, that two backpacks containing explosives and ignition devices were found near a pipeline that supplies 60% of Hungary's natural gas. Orban didn't directly blame Ukraine, but says Ukraine has been for years trying to cut off Europe from Russian energy. Hungary's opposition leader is raising doubts about the alleged plot, which comes a week to the day before Hungarians go to the polls. The choice is between electing Orban for a fifth straight term or a social conservative nationalist. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are backing Orban, but he's currently trailing in the polls. As Redmond Shannon reports, the election will be closely watched and nervously watched from Brussels to Kyiv.
Like any watering hole, anywhere, politics is a topic of conversation at Sandor's pub. In particular, Hungary's election. János says he'll probably decide how to vote when he gets into the polling booth. On April 12th, Hungarians will decide if Viktor Orban will serve a fifth consecutive term as Prime Minister, a sixth in all. This man is out to stop him. Former ally Peter Magyar, who only left Orban's Fidesz party 2 years ago and now leads a rejuvenated opposition. He says the election is about whether Hungary wants to be free and European or remain what he calls a Russian puppet state under Orban. Orban is the European Union leader closest to Russian President Vladimir Putin and has refused to send military aid to Ukraine. He outraged EU leaders last month by blocking a loan to Kyiv, citing damage in Ukraine to a Russia-Hungary oil pipeline.
No any pro-Ukrainian decision is supported by Hungary till the oil issue is not settled.
Magyar has promised to fight corruption and to restore media freedoms and the independence of the judiciary.
Even if there's a new government with a new leader after the election, it could still take some time to change things in the state institutions after such a long period of rule by one party.
But Magyar, like Orban, is a conservative and a nationalist, and is also sceptical of helping Ukraine, although Orban has campaigned on framing his opponent as a war-hungry supporter of Kyiv. US President Donald Trump has openly endorsed Orban for another term. Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance will meet with Orban in Budapest in the coming days as Hungary prepares for polling day. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Cambodia has unveiled the world's first statue dedicated to a landmine detecting rat to mark International Day for Mine Awareness. Magawa, who lived to 8 years old before dying in 2022, sniffed out more than 100 landmines and other explosives during his career, helping clear more than 141,000 square meters of land. Cambodia is one of the world's most heavily landmine contaminated countries due to decades of war. A sign of the times ahead, why clients of a Montreal food bank are having to go without. Quite the celebration in Taber, Alberta, as that community was named this year's Hockeyville winner. In December, a devastating explosion rendered the community's ice rink unusable. Taber will receive $250,000 in arena upgrades. The runner-up, Tumbler Ridge, BC, the site of a recent mass shooting, will receive $100,000. Canadians are being urged to check their fridges after a national recall was issued for a number of popular cheese products. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has pulled numerous brands of shredded cheese, soft cheeses, and salad kits off the shelves due to potential listeria contamination. People are urged to check their home for any of the recalled items and to throw them out or return them to where they were purchased. With the cost of putting a meal on the table rising, more and more Canadians are turning to food banks. Demand has doubled since 2019. Global's Tim Sargeant visited a Montreal food bank that was forced to relocate because of a fire and is now struggling to provide for the community.
Diane Ritchie has been coming to this food bank for 9 years, but recently the amount of groceries she receives has dwindled.
Well, today we didn't get much because they don't have much donations. We got bread. We got oatmeal, we got vegetable crackers.
Supplies at La Main qui Partage have been cut by more than half. The food bank is temporarily operating out of a small chalet in a public park in the southwest borough, with no refrigeration system and no means to keep perishable items.
We got nothing and the people waiting there for that.
The pantry moved to this location in the Côte St. Paul district after a fire destroyed its permanent spot inside the St. Paul Church a few blocks away. The loss of the church also meant a loss of space.
I laugh, but it's not very funny, you know, because we're not able to give too much.
Pierre Deschamps says the volunteers who operate the food bank are trying to find a bigger location, but time is running out. The food bank has until June 24th to move. The city takes over the building after that because it's needed to run a summer camp in the park. With the clock ticking, the challenges are growing for the food bank. Not only do they need to find a new place by June 24th, but they want one that's similar to the size of what they had at this church and at a very low cost.
We've been looking around because it's not a lot local.
Jars of peanut butter, mayonnaise, bottled drinks, and cereal are the kinds of non-perishable items that line the shelves. The pantry can't store fresh produce, meat, poultry, fish, or any dairy products.
There's like no more fridges, so like he don't get, I guess, the same amount of things like we're used to getting.
Maria Shiasia, like many other people who come here, rely on the food bank services. Many can't afford the local grocery stores. They wish lawmakers would do more to help.
We are people. We're not just, nobodies. They should try and help people that are low wage.
But until something changes, and fast, people will have to keep coming here, knowing food supplies are limited. Tim Sargeant, Global News, Montreal.
Next, the cafe in Edmonton that hopes to feed patrons in more ways than one.
Happy Easter.
King Charles and Queen Camilla greeting people outside St. George's Chapel in Windsor after attending the traditional Easter service. They were joined by other members of the royal family, including Prince William, wife Catherine, and their children, along with Prince Edward and Princess Anne. Former royal Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was not in attendance. A new Indigenous business that's been years in the making is now opening its doors in Edmonton. The owners are welcoming customers in not just for food, but for an experience. As Sarah Comedina explains, they've had to overcome many challenges to get here.
Alice Arcand is living his dream.
Kakio is the Cree word for everybody.
Kakio Studio Cafe opened for business this week, partnering with TP Treats. It's a space to celebrate Indigenous art, conversation, and food.
I'm in this for creating a cool space that people can enjoy and feel welcomed and feel a nice Indigenous hug around them, I guess, if you will.
The downtown cafe was once a comic book store, and it took months to renovate. And while that was a challenge, Arcand says overcoming stigma was hard too, despite being a world champion hoop dancer and involved in the community.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of Indigenous people on the streets. There's a lot of addictions problems in our community, and there's a lot of racism and stereotypes and stuff. And so us doing this is a form of resilience.
To get here, it just seemed like I climbed the mountain. Some more berries in there.
TP Treats Curtis Cardinal says he has also faced these challenges.
To be Indigenous owner, you have to be a certain way, or you know, people won't acknowledge you or see you for who you really are.
He started his business 5 years ago, filling out takeout orders, cooking out of a church kitchen. He bounced around and now finally has a home for his dream.
Now we're here, and I'm just like, you know, I get emotional just thinking about it, but I'm just grateful to be here.
And this is only the beginning. Kakio Studio wants to have dance teachings, poetry, and open mic nights.
I think this is more about legacy building and more about creating opportunities not only for myself, but for others.
And while everyone is welcome, the hope is Indigenous people will find inspiration here, no matter what challenges they face.
I have a business right across the alley from the welfare office that me and my mom used to go to when I was a kid. So I wanted to be a shining light of living proof that to people that don't limit yourself.
Sarah Medina, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada is the 60th annual Beaches Lions Club Easter Parade in Toronto, the largest and longest running Easter parade in the country. Thanks for watching and happy Easter. Jeff Semple will be at the anchor desk tomorrow. Hope you have a great night.